comes back sometimes when I least expect it. A moment among moments. A slice of my past haunting me like a poltergeist of the mind. Lurking and creeping. It's weird, but traumatic experiences are a really hard thing to get over. I suppose that's why they're considered traumatic. Well, I was confused, and I still am. No matter how well I still remember, it still remains in the past. I know that. But it feels like the present. So where do I begin? Well, I guess I'll begin at the end. It seems not to make a difference. That's the funny thing about our minds. They travel in completely arbitrary timelines. We can arrive at any point and traverse entire lifetimes at random. Anyway, where was I? Ah yes, the end. Or at least of some sorts. My mother died at age 52 on August 1st, 2003. It was not a quick death, but a slow one. One life that seemed to drag on into death over what seemed like an eternity. It started to really go nasty the last month, July. Bright sunny skies, needles, warm breezes, a stroke, cool evenings, and pills. Lots and lots of pills. Cancer is a pretty weird thing. It's kind of like a human being, really. A parasite eating off its large host and slowly devouring its home, slowly killing itself in the process. Kamikaze cells on a downward spiral into oblivion. As I watched my mother struggle for 9 months prior to her death, I felt pretty ignorant and pretty damn useless. It seemed the only thing was to be positive and support my family as best I could, with a good attitude. We all dealt with it in different ways. My sister was busy with school and lived in Mississauga, so she was only home for short periods of time. She hid her emotions quite well. She had a tough time believing that it was even possible that one of us had this disease. My dad was supportive to my mother for the most part. I think it was hardest for him. I mean, she was the woman he loved. His wife, the mother of his 2 obnoxious children. She was his conscience, and they were one. He would get angry sometimes. I didn't even know what to do. I felt useless for the first time in my life. Truly helpless. It's a horrible feeling. I could not help it. And I could not help her. The only thing I could do was keep a smile on my face. It had been a while since I was actually happy, at home or anywhere else. I usually took my family for granted, but I all of a sudden became honest with my mother. I would tell her how I felt, and things about myself I never thought I would ever tell her. About a month or 2 before she died, I sat in our living room with my father and my mother, and admitted to them that I had attempted suicide at one time a few years ago. We discussed life and mortality, and my mother thanked me for talking to her about such personal issues. Fuck. She was my mother. She was dying, and I'd never told her about myself. Taking things for granted. Huh. Yeah. Certainly did take things for granted. It all happened so fast. Or was it so slow? I think the best way to think of it is if you were to compress a week into a day, and each hour were to feel like a year. Yeah, that's about right. Time seemed to have no meaning. My dad woke me up at 1 in the morning on a Tuesday. I was tired, but he would not leave me alone. Wake up, it's Mom. Something's not right with Mom. He sounded confused, afraid. I got up and he left the room. I was angry. I didn't want to get up. I had to be up for 6 in the morning. 5 more hours just felt unfair. But I got up anyway, more confused and curious than anything else, and headed upstairs. Mom and Dad's room. What's wrong? I don't know. Those are probably the scariest words anyone could ever hear. I don't know. My mother, naked on her bed, with only a towel over her, was moaning and clutching her head with her hand. C'est difficile, were, I think, the last words my mother said to me. It's difficult. She was diagnosed with brain cancer after 9 months of treatments for lung cancer. It was the night after her first radiation therapy session. It was too late. She was slipping into a coma, but we had no idea. For the next few hours, we sat by her side, carried her paralyzed body to the washroom and back, leaned her on her side when she would vomit, and cleaned her as she lost control of her bowel movements. I and my family watched as every private human ritual was stripped from her, and she could no longer speak, respond, or move her body. Loud, blood-curdling shrieks came when we moved her, and she seemed distant to the point where I felt she couldn't even recognize us. The doctor was called by my father, and we gave her more medication as prescribed by the doctor's diagnosis over the phone. We were to see if she got better by the morning. Things began to settle down around 3 a.m. Mom seemed to be able to sleep, so we all packed it in, exhausted and scared. I was awakened at 7 a.m., just a few hours later again by my father. "Nick, I can't wake her," he said. I got some pants on and ran upstairs. Took my mother by the shoulders and I shook her. "Mom! Mom! Mom! Can you hear me? Wake up, Mom!" Nothing. She was breathing, but her eyes were half closed. She was gone. Somewhere else. Between worlds. "Call an ambulance, Dad. Now." My father did so, and the next thing I knew, firemen and ambulance drivers, paramedics flooded our street and our house. They did every test to wake her. Nothing. I was then on the front lawn watching as they carried my mother on a stretcher to the ambulance. My father went with them. Julie and I stood on the front porch and watched the other half of the family leave. Later, a phone call. "Dad, come to the hospital now." A family room. A room with bad paintings and a couch, a Bible, a phone book. How appropriately cliché for the moment. The doctor, a counselor. "She's gonna die, blah blah blah. Time to be with her. We're going to remove the machines, blah blah blah. Be strong, blah blah." God, those paintings are awful. This place is awful. They walk us to the emergency room to watch our mother, my father's wife, die. "Do you want a priest?" "No." "Emergency. Loud people screaming, crying. We're sorry, it's been a bad morning." "Pull the curtain." Machines turn off. Dad cries, Julie cries. I grab the stretcher. I feel as though I will break it off. Death grip. Mom grasps for air. Not conscious. Coma. She makes awful noises. Smell. The smell of blood, sweat, urine, feces, like the smell of our house that night. A familiar stench. It hit me. I cry. Really fast. It lasts about 10 seconds. A surge of repression. I cry from frustration. Watching her die, I felt, became the result, the climax of watching her die slowly for 10 months. I stop. My sister is holding me up. She doesn't die. Not for days. They move her to a room, then a private room. 5th floor, south wing, last room. The last room. Tuesday, gone. Wednesday, gone. Waiting. Thursday, gone. Waiting to die. Friday, around 2 p.m. I'm watching some shitty animation movie. I'm eating a hot dog. First thing I've eaten in 2 days. Dad comes upstairs. "Let's go. It's time. This is the last time you will ever see your mother." Dad in his car, Julie and Nick in their car together. Silence. They get there, go up to the room with the counselor, let us in. Foggy outside, gray, no light in room. Gray-green walls, stagnant air, body in a bed. Nick looks, Dad cries, closes her eyes with fingers. She is the same color as the walls. Gray, green, and yellow. Mouth open, smaller, so small like a dead baby. Windows are white, a fog off the lake. Mom used to love that place, thinks Nick. Julie cries, touches Mom. She says she's cold, the room is cold, and has ugly flower wallpaper that matches the gray-green flowers. Nick dies. Nick decides he hates flowers. Nick looks down and realizes he has not moved from the corner. He approaches the bed. He has not cried. He will not cry. He stands beside her, and looks down. Time passes. He does not think. His mind dies with his dead mother. He reaches out to touch her. She is ugly. She is not his mother anymore. He does not like this memory. It does not fit with the rest. I love my mother. He does not love this. This horror. This is what terror feels like, real terror. He thinks of his art. Nothing compared to the grotesque terror in life. Abandon what you know, a voice tells him, or what you think you know. He remembers himself on a bridge, a few years back, ready to end his own life. Idiot, ignorant, little spoiled fuck. He is crying. He thinks only of himself, the knife in hand. He begins to cut. He cuts himself. Not too deep. Pain. What a wimp. So weak. He picked a spot where he could be found. A forest path. It's beautiful. Too beautiful. It's no hospital, he thinks. There is no gray-green. The sun is setting there. No fog. He decides to live because he fears death. He doesn't even understand it. He decides to become a painter because he is confused and stupid. A selfish little 18-year-old. Now he is older, and he wants to live. He has the choice, and he understands something about the fact that he is privileged. Choice. He does not want a gray-green. He wants to live. He lives, but now he sees and remembers the gray and the green.